Hey everyone, Whitney here. I'm going to take a break today from my usual video content because I want to share part of my personal story with you. And this is a story that I've shared with several clients as I've tried to help them go through some difficult times. And I guess I just finally decided that it also might be very valuable for some of you out there listening to me right now who yourselves are going through some pretty hard times in terms of your health experience. So I want to tell you about a day that was probably one of the lowest points in my health journey, but ultimately became a day that I'm very grateful for because now I can see was the turning point for me and what got me on the road to actually healing. So this happened in the early 2000s to me, and I was sitting in my doctor's office, little white paper gown on a cold table, and my doctor was saying to me, this is almost verbatim quote, he says to me, "Yeah, nothing can be done. This isn't curable. It's not going to kill you, but you'll die with it. And we'll do what we can to try and manage the pain, but you should probably join a support group." I was devastated. And in that moment, I was being diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, which is a really painful autoimmune disease of the bladder. For months, I had been in constant pain. I couldn't sleep. I could barely get through a day at work. I certainly couldn't have intimate relations. Just imagine like the worst urinary tract infection you've ever had, multiply that by 10, and then imagine that it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And here I was in a urologist's office and getting this diagnosis that to me meant my life was over. And I remember I couldn't look up. My head was hanging down, and I wanted to say something. I couldn't. I had no breath in my body. I was absolutely devastated, and I felt in that moment like, this is it. There's no reason to be here anymore. And I've never before felt that in my life. I never had a moment where I felt like I didn't want to continue to live anymore. But in that moment, that is what I felt. Thank God it was only for a few seconds, because shortly after that, I had this experience where I heard what I believe is every cell in my body screaming the word no. And I'm not kidding you. It wasn't that I was thinking it. These weren't thoughts coming out of my head. These weren't voices in my head. Some people might call it God or the universe or my higher self. But for me, the experience was a symphony of smaller voices coming from all over my body and kind of resonating and echoing inside of me. So I believe that it was just every fiber of my being. And the one word they were saying was no. And that was the turning point for me. I knew at that moment that everything in my body was saying, do not accept this. And that was pretty profound for me because, like most people, I think, we put our faith in our doctors. They're the experts, and we kind of take their word as gospel. For me, that was magnified. I grew up the daughter of a surgeon, and my mother was a nurse. I was a daddy's girl. My dad was my hero. And so on top of that, I think I projected upon to every doctor that kind of hero complex. And I had been trained my whole life that medicine had the answer to everything. And if you wanted the answer, you needed to go to, the specialist, the cream of the crop, and that would give you the final word. I had blind faith in traditional medicine. But in that moment, that faith was completely shattered in a second, and I never questioned that shattering after that. This was my second autoimmune disease that I've been diagnosed with. The first was psoriasis. And I know some of you out there are probably saying, Whitney, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with Hashimoto's, nothing to do with gluten. This is so off topic for you. But this is part of my journey. And this was years before my Hashimoto's diagnosis. Almost a decade before my celiac diagnosis. I am an autoimmune collector, right? At least that's what I was. I collected autoimmune diseases, and this was my second one. But for those of you out there who have interstitial cystitis, I'm sure you completely understand just the absolute despair that comes along with that diagnosis. And anyway, I walked out of that office and I just knew, okay, that's it. This is not my future. I do not accept it. I am going to find another way. Something has to be done, and I'm going to find out what it is. I had no clue what to do. I had no background in nutrition or functional medicine or anything like that. All I had was this confidence and this belief that there has to be an answer. So I'm not going to bore you with the rest of that journey, but the point of this story is no matter where you are, no matter how painful your disease, how all-encompassing your diagnosis, right? Even if you are at your lowest point, take it from me, diagnosis does not have to be your destiny. And just because the most brilliant doctors tell you that nothing can be done, that's not true. You don't have to accept that as the truth. I think what my doctor was really saying, if I look back on it, was he didn't know what could be done. And because he didn't know what could be done, I think he just assumed that nothing could be done, But here I am today, and I do not have interstitial cystitis anymore. I'm not hiding behind my clothes because of horrible psoriasis flares, and I'm not debilitated by Hashimoto's anymore. I have healed myself, and it really began, that healing journey began with the worst day of my life and the most horrific, depressing words that a doctor has ever uttered to me. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. And, if this resonates with you, no matter what your disease, no matter what your autoimmune issues are, if you have a story to share it. DM me or share it with everybody here in the comments. We need each other's support, and we need to be there for each other, so that we can have faith to take the next step, right? Even if we don't know where that next step is leading us. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for some of you, and I wish you well. Bye.